Yeah, absolutely. You cannot take any notes whatsoever. You only take number 2, Ticonderoga, with no eraser. The computer must be a Mac. Don't listen to him. All right, everybody, welcome to the Node.js meetup. Quick question: how many of you are new to this Node.js meetup? All right, a good number of you. Welcome, welcome. We do this every single month on the third Thursday. And first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this. Code Talent has graciously provided us the space for this, and full cabinet of beer and drinks. So I don't believe that there are any Code Talent members here tonight. They sort of took off to go do their own thing, but they're an awesome technical talent agency. Utilize their services. Now we also have a huge pile of pizza over there that we will ask you to eat all that you can and then take some pies home with you. That is provided by Google. So
never heard of them.
Never heard of them? Oh, well,
They start up. Look them up.
So all you have to do is search for them online. I don't know what to use for that, but all right. So does anybody have any announcements before we're going to start the show? All right. Well, without any further ado, I'm going to, well, I guess I have one announcement. I just remembered. We're streaming this online. That's also going to save a copy of this presentation for later viewing. So if you want to watch this again. So we may or may not have some questions come in online. We'll just ask those as they come in. Yes? Actually, where can this be found? So I tweeted out, if you look, I have a browser up here. I will share this, and I'll share a link in the meetup notes, or you can go to twitter.com/Brooks_Patton, and that's where I have a link right now. All right. Any questions or comments, thoughts? All right. With that, let me introduce you, James, the Nodester.
How's it going, everybody? That was for the pizza. So I've been doing a couple of these talks through I decided this time that it would be really fun to do all my cheat sheets. So I'm hoping this slide deck is actually very useful to anybody that might be doing some of this node work. A little bit of a resource, something to look back on. It's going to be very dense, you'll see. So a little bit about me. My name is James Gibson, with my lovely partner in the back there. I'm a co-founder of Gibson Consulting, and also a developer here in town. You can find me there. It'll be at the end of the slide. Don't worry about writing it down. So you've installed, let's get right into it. So you've installed Express. Now what? With this, you kind of just run the generator and it's done. But what else can you do with it? Well, first things first, because I'm an idiot, run npm. Like seriously, because the Express generator doesn't do that. And if you try to turn it on, it works. You want to install your packages here. Then I'd like to go ahead and suggest that. There you go. Remove things that you don't need. So the Express generator, when you turn it on, has a lot of things that you don't need. So I'd like to start with suggestions, specifically for the static host. You don't actually need it unless you're hosting web pages from your API, but that's for another server. Since we're only hosting JSON, remove the view engine. You don't need it, because it's going to cause you problems later. So next thing, what are the cookies? We're not going to use cookies. Old. we're gonna use a token-based authentication system. I'll jump into it later. But you don't need cookies. It's not gonna help you with your small project. I don't know what the case might be for your software, but you don't have time to go into bugs. Turn it off. And then more bits there. That wasn't enough. Go ahead and take all of those things out of your package JSON. Get rid of the cookies, get rid of the view engine, get rid of basically anything else that you don't need for your specific project. Just go ahead and remove it from the package JSON, and it's one less thing to break. Once we've gone ahead and ripped out rough that Express, I'd like to suggest that we go ahead and install some things back into it. Specifically, start with .env. .env is going to make configuring your server, your service, much easier. It's going to allow you to use files and put your environment variables outside of your project, so no more hard coding things. If you're using Postgres, go ahead and install pgnext, how you pronounce it, not next, as I've been doing it for 2 years. Using Mongo. That said, these packages will come in handy. Now, adapt it to what you're most comfortable with. Don't use it because I suggested it, but this is a really good starting point for your project. These packages themselves only do what you configure them to. So kind of counterintuitive. You gotta instantiate these rules. There's some good defaults online for all 3 of these packages, but once you tie them all together and you intertwine these tools, they will find bugs before you do. Recently, I was able to burn through. I'm doing a refactoring project for somebody, and it was just bug after bug. I was pulling their code. The system did not like it. By the time I was done with it, using these 3 packages, I had knocked out 150 bugs in 5 hours. They just point you right to the problem and say, really should fix that. So I would strongly recommend all of your personal projects of a build. The more useful bits. Go ahead and add a health check. Might not use this instantly, but if you put your project inside of any cloud providers, depending on having an ability to see if the server is still online is actually more handy than you might think, because they tend to crash left and right if you're not careful. You create some classes and you just throw them in there and they become singletons. Well, I can tell you, and almost any programmer that's been, I want to say, like, once you hit the 6-year mark, if you're using a singleton, they'll probably tell you it's a bad idea, because it always comes back to bite you. And so to counteract that tendency to push towards singletons, I want to suggest that you install these into a place that is very easy to access. So install them into the rec object. You can go ahead and add any property, any method that you want onto the rec or res object inside of Express. And in this case, I've chosen the word custom. And so in any one of my requests, as I go through the next sets of requests to process, I will be able to call rec.custom and then pull out my provider directly from request. And so I've instantiated ahead of time a copy of my state service, and I've pulled it out at the time of request without having a. And so this small pattern might seem a lot, but it's really helpful. I'll actually turn. I've gone ahead and included a snippet of connects and ongoing. But another thing that's really useful is don't leak any information. So one of the things that you can do here is you've got 2 separate processes that will happen based on the environment. And this is where that .env package comes in handy, because it'll allow you to put some of those variables outside of your files. But we're able to strip out any bits of information that might make it easier for somebody to attack our server. So once you've spun up your service, your API, these are for personal reasons. You don't want somebody attacking it, and so don't give them that they don't actually. One other thing to that point, get rid of the headers that tell the attackers what you're running. Obvious, but I want to say like 90% of people production apps, and you'll greatly increase the security of your server by removing the concept telling the attacker, hey, I'm running Express, because then they know exactly how to attack your server. And optionally, and I would say take this with a grain of salt, because this actually will open up security problems, but it is insanely useful if you want anybody else to consume your API off of your domain. And so just adding 3 lines and 2 headers, you'll open up your API so that basically any website, any browser will be able to consume. If you would like a more in-depth solution, always CORS package. I've had some people online kind of go, really want to throw that at this problem? It's that simple, basically. Install CORS as middleware, and you'll get all of that, plus it'll handle all of your options. What could go? All right, how do I secure? So we've kind of touched on a quick few things that you'll pull out of the Express server before you even start your application logic. And so we want to jump right into, all right, how do I keep other people from accessing my brand new API? Well, traditional, let's let somebody else deal with it, okay? Google's pretty great at that. Let's do OAuth. Well, that's kind of a lot of work for this small project. There's a lot of things that actually need to get set up to do well. And so what do we do? Because it really is a build project. In that regard, the next logical step is, well, we'll do a local. Look it up in our data. Well, you'll have to manage users. You don't get away, even with the OAuth, you have to manage keeping track of the people that have given you access to. And so the local user strategy will have the same exact problem. You're still expected to look at the database and find out, is this who I think it is? Email who I think it is. So what do we really? Well, the answer is actually very simple. This piece of middleware will reject every request that does not include that token. What is that token, you might ask? Go ahead and run this command, and it will generate a random string, apply it to the variable, and then you have to use it on every HTTP request to this API. There's no database, there's no parts, there's nothing required. All a token, check it on every request, and it's good. Huh? Are there any? Something else very useful. Go ahead and use Docker. I've gone ahead and linked the presentation here at Denver Script a couple weeks ago. Dockerizing all of the things by Drew Dahlman is a very good resource in understanding how to go ahead and Dockerize a bunch of different things. He had to do multiple projects in kind of various situations, and he's gone ahead and written down kind of best practices. Yeah. So I would suggest using this specifically because of the simplicity of changing your node version. Because using NVM, it's a moving part. Using Docker, anybody that has Docker installed, Docker will figure it out for you. And so that would be my primary. I've actually stayed away from using. No. If it's going to be in one environment, you can probably get away with not putting it in Docker. But I have found personally the pure builds Docker gives you are really hard because you can set it up and Docker will just blow away the previous build, install everything, set it up, and every time you restart Docker image in that regard, you build it, it'll just reconfigure itself with what it knows as of that point. Also a benefit because it will prevent you from debugging problems in terms of what NPM place, Bower screwed it up. If you do this every time your project builds, it will go through the same exact steps, a clean environment, and you can share it to anybody. Did that answer your question? Perfect. Other questions? Another thing that I would suggest is not to do the work. If you can find somebody else, and whether that's local, whether that's in a niche forum, you found somebody that was doing the same thing you're doing, maybe there's some trade-offs. Maybe you can take half the work and they can take the other half. God, because all of these problems, he has solved them before. The same thing goes with libraries. If you can find a library that will provide the functionality that you require, plus you have to test for them. Keep your bits small. The project is supposed to be for fun, right? Don't kill yourself, trying to shove too much functionality into any one thing. If it's becoming burdensome, it's okay to start a new. Try not to. And this is a chance for you to explore, a chance for you to understand, kind of what's going on underneath the scenes. So have fun with it. Get into it. Build more than one service if it makes sense. Single route services are completely legit. I've built entire Express servers that serve exactly one route. I think Express kind of handed it to me worth the overhead. Your hosting will be cheap. These applications that you build are probably not going to serve bytes worth of data, not going to have a lot of storage costs. So if you spend a couple extra bucks to make your life easier hosting around, kind of worth it. If Swagger is something that can keep you organized, give it a shot, because it will make it very easy for you to share your project with. Back to Forbes. By opening up your API, you now expose what you have built to other people. Now, if API does nothing but turn your toaster on and off, nobody's really interested in that. But if you have an interesting idea, it might be worth considering. And again, back to kind of my previous point. Don't spend more than you need. Take advantage of trials if they're free, cheap. If you're a student, consider checking out the GitHub. We'll give you, I believe, free private hosting, a domain package. Pick up. Also, be aware of the cloud providers that are. I've included a list. This is not comprehensive, but these are ones that I've used directly. I've kind of ranked them. And in that regard, your API might be best suited to small. So Heroku might be really good because you can one-click install Postgres. One click will just take $7+ a month. I personally have standardized on Node mixed with Google Cloud Provider. Yes. So AWS is like visiting a crack dealer on the street, and he gives you a sample and says, "Come back tomorrow." They just hand you all of these sweet things and expect you to never get cavities. And they do really great things. And Lightsail is actually an AWS product, but it is a VPS product. Yes. perfect example. So my distaste for AWS, I'm going to back it up for a sec and kind of answer both of those questions at the same time. Because of the version lock-in that you kind of get with all of the services that AWS provides, I personally have standardized on trying to make sure all of my services, AI server, doesn't really matter. I want to be able to pick it up, move it, and hosting costs drop or somebody's latency gets better. I want to move where it's going to be best. And so if I hook myself into all of the AWS services, I can't move. And so I personally have taken it as kind of a bit of a learning challenge to say, I need to be able to pick up all of my applications back to the Docker. I can hand this to the provider and so Linode, DigitalOcean, and Lightsail are all going to be VPS providers. Call whatever you want. Whole machines. But Heroku will not allow you to install Docker. I don't think they have support for it yet. The Google Cloud provider, they will. There's a little more work. But the Linode, DigitalOcean, and Lightsail, you can install anything you need. Unrelated, but I use a couple other helpful tips in relation to this. Take really good notes. Whether you are at work on your project, or even just enjoying the weekend programming, there's a lot of things that you can learn just by living your life. So if you have a problem at work very similar to something you're solving, don't be afraid to lean on what you're learning. Work environment. Those notes will be very valuable as you're figuring out the processes. Do that. I'm in the process of starting this, so starting a personal wiki, taking those notes, putting them in a spot that says, when I find this problem again, I can come right back here, how to solve it. Steps, resolution. And I never have to figure out how to ruin my node modules again, whatever it might be. Sounds obvious. Make really good bookmarks. I have a collection of bookmarks that they're one-off. You come across a blog article on Hacker News that sounds like a problem that you're eventually going to solve. Way is you never really. And I've had really good success putting some of those really good technical articles forward. I come into that problem again. Still relevant. Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice that I have not always followed, and sometimes I can't find my bookmarks, so I've tried to get really good about. If they do, I want to hear about it because I'm this close to building my own. Real quick, stepping back, a little bit of backstory. Some here know this, but myself, I'm doing some of the projects specifically because of practice and understanding how do I build this project so that it pays me to do it later, how to do it, and it's taken care of. And so right now I have 5 services at the moment across a couple different environments, and I'm like struggling to back up them all. And so I'm with you. If anybody has a bookmark solution, I want to know about it. So that said, that's kind of all I have. But I would love to open it up for questions. Is there anything that you guys are experiencing in your projects right now at having some extra insight into maybe what Node is doing under the hood? A lot of debugging in that space. Happy to kind of walk you through. Understand what a promise is. I'm not promises. Then I would say it's fine. If you don't understand the underlying promise, then in catch. Because understood async wait is just don't understand. Good. So one of the reasons that I didn't, if I look at the production code bases I work with, there was no motivation to go and promises async. They don't do anything promises don't. So if your code base is already sitting promises, it's not necessarily worth in a way because you're really just covering up the promise. I found really good success by propagating promise model of the and catch out my Express applications such a way that when you come in through a request, the way that my code tends to work, the request comes in, we check, validate, and then we go to the handler. Now the handler validation is kind of wrapped in there, but the handler itself says, here's everything that I need to do HTTP. When we're speaking HTTP, there's no real concept of promises, request back, the response in that regard. Once you hit the business logic, that's where the promises take over. So in my code, from the handlers down through the services, I make all of that promise based. And so when we get bubbles, because the promises have a very natural bubble all the way back up, once you get back into the handler, cut off the promise interface situation, and we switch. All right, how do we translate this error into? And I found by keeping those two worlds, fallback nature of right, versus the promise services, very clear. One of the tools. So what stage are we kind of talking? Whole stage of an API, like the whole life cycle, or are you period of a? My recommendation. Add this to the slide because I didn't even think about this. My recommendation for the Swagger is write it as JSON and serve it as a route. Worry about automatic routes populating. Serve it up. You can pull it up the Swagger. No, because when you think about it, the API would still be. So anybody with enough time. So the Swagger is saying, here's situations where my API is going to talk to you, situations it's not, and you really haven't reviewed. Because under the hood, you're not writing Express. All they have to do is check vulnerabilities against Express. When it comes to building API, I've honestly tried to be best get out because down such simple it's it, and it doesn't make sense. Don't do it. Yeah, you could also do a /swagger. Good. Honestly, you can get as creative as you want. I mean, board of directors telling you how I need to. No, what you want, but think about why you're doing it. Make sure that you're not creating a ability that somebody's going to break into your hosting server. Happened, and Bitcoins accident. Postgres installed a passwordless user on my computer access, and within a couple hours, somebody was mining Bitcoins on my computer. And so operate from a stance of I'm not going to expose anything. Like if I had known my computer had done that, I would have fixed it, but didn't find out until my computer. But the same thing goes for your APIs. Don't build something that can be exploited for somebody else. You don't want to foot the bill. Yes, I kind of stayed away from it in this slide. I don't want to make any assumption about somebody's environment, but if you do want to put yes, I recommend actually a solid example. All they do is they actually Docker sign, launch the coming across the process, and then we'll spin up proxy in front of it for you. So you don't actually have to dig X. You don't actually have to go into static configuration. Once you connect traffic to Docker stuff, it'll actually. But yes, let's encrypt proxy in front of it. Single process node stuff if you can. File process. One process. Traffic, TRAFIK. Koa. So consider this. The amount of samples. They have the documentation down pat at this. The number of prizes that you're probably going to find. Happy is probably close. I'm not really sure on Koa, but Happy is probably close to Express in the maturity because they started pretty close to each other. But in that regard, I picked Express because of its maturity specifically. Good in theory, JavaScript. But the other options would probably work just basically everything applies. That's so. I would look at it. So remember how I was saying handlers, then your Express paradigm stops at the handler. So Happy, Koa stops at the handler, and it's just. And so honestly, I want to go straight logic, personal logic, whatever you might be writing. I want to jump into that as quickly as possible because that's where the problem is. But yeah, you could totally replace the top layer. Play. No other questions.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming out. We only have one speaker at these events. Now is plenty of time to get more pizza if you would like, and mingle a little bit, and then.
And I'll be around for a few more minutes. If you want to pick my brain, I'll try to give you good advice.